morning. So, this is such a true story. I went to lunch with a friend yesterday, and I was like, I'm really nervous about tomorrow. I really am. This is not my thing, the whole public speaking thing either. And she was like, you'll do fine. But I'm like, I've had the worst 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. She's like, that's perfect. She's like, when you're exhausted, you have no inhibitions. So let me just tell you, I'm gonna totally rock this because I'm freaking tired. So I also just want to say that this is like my, look, I made it moment, right? And unfortunately, my mom couldn't be here tonight because she had back surgery last week and she's doing very well, but she just couldn't make the trip. So I did just want to dedicate my time up here to my mom tonight. And I also wanted to dedicate it to my daughters in the audience because since you've come into the world, you have been my sunshines. You always will be my sunshine. So thanks for sticking it out tonight. Appreciate it. So this is, so you're gonna hear a lot of buzzwords because I'm number 11 here, so all the words have been used. But this is probably one of the most vulnerable positions I've ever been in. And so I wanted to do a little exercise here with you first to just kind of kick it off. And I just want you to take a really good look at me. Don't judge me too much because I'm exhausted. But, what I'm wearing, what I sound like, how I'm presenting to you. And I want you to make some assumptions. And I know some of you know me, but it doesn't matter. Make some assumptions, make some judgments about me. And then I want you to just tuck that away somewhere and we'll come back to it later. And now I'm going to tell you a story. Picture it. Brooklyn, 1981-ish. I'm 3 years old, right around 3 years old. And we lived in this tiny apartment. So tiny, tiny 2-bedroom apartment. And if I went into my bedroom at the time and stuck my arms out like this, I could reach both walls on either side. It's got all the quintessential terrible late 70s stuff in it. It had a brown refrigerator and linoleum floor or whatever. But I just thought it was a castle. So my mom is a first-time mom. At the time, I'm an only child. And she's in her mid-20s, and she's just elated to have a little girl. So the minute I popped out and took my first breath, I had a dress on, I had nail polish on my nails. I mean, it was the whole thing. I had really long, longer than this, but just as thick and curly hair, and she used to brush it. Yeah, and it sounds exactly like it was. It was not pleasant. So the day finally comes, right? And I am old enough to be enrolled in my first ballet class. And I'm gonna tell you that I never asked to be in ballet. Nor do I think I ever did anything that would ever give my mother a clue that I wanted to be in ballet. But I didn't really know what was happening. I was super little. And so one day she gets everything together. She gets me, dressed. She gets the leotard, the tights, the shoes. My hair goes up and everything. And I'm sitting there all right, I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea. And we go to the first ballet class, and I had no idea what to expect. And I was pretty outgoing as a little kid, but I have to say, at that time in larger crowds, I was still a little shy. So here we are, and my mom walks in, and I open the door, and I walk into this classroom, and there are all these little girls flitting around in tutus and pink things, and I'm like, oh my gosh! I was like, oh my goodness. And I knew immediately that I really just didn't fit in there at all. And I didn't want to be there, and I kind of froze up. And I spent the entire class like this underneath my mother's chair. Seriously, like I don't remember a lot of things from my childhood, but I remember this. So, we don't say anything, we go home. I don't know, I'm 3 again, so every day feels like a year, and like every month feels like, 5 years. So, we don't really talk about it, and then like the next week rolls around, and it's obviously time for ballet class again. So out comes all the accoutrement, the tights, the this, the that, and I'm like, I have to go back to the shit, and I'm like, no. So I didn't know. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna make me go back. So she's getting everything on me, and everything's just itchy, and I'm just, everything's on. And I remember standing there in the kitchen, and I'm like, I don't want to go. And she looked at me, and I saw just all the blood drained from her face. All the visions of a prima ballerina now had just gone right out the freaking window. And she turned to me and she said, "You're going." And so at that moment, I basically did what any 3-year-old would do, and I started to throw a tantrum. And I was crying and screaming and carrying on, and nothing was working, and it probably went on for about 15 minutes, but again, in my head, that was like, it was going on for hours now. And so finally, I realized that there was only one way I was gonna get out of going to that ballet class. So I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, and I peed. I pissed through everything. And I only had one of everything. And my mother looked at me. I've never told the story like this is. They said, "Tell a story, Angela." I'm like, all right. So she looked at me, and she screamed at me on the top of her lungs, but then she never ever made me go to that damn ballet class again. So, I don't even know where the hell I am in these notes. I think I'm on I don't know. The end, just kidding. So you might be asking me, okay, Angela, this is great, it's funny and everything, but why the heck are you telling this story? And, what is so important about a girl peeing in her leotard? Well, I'm gonna tell you. So, it's the first time that this girl stood in her power. And it is the first time that I set a boundary. And it is the first time that I recognized discomfort, and I knew that I did not want to sit in it. As I continued to grow, actually, that's not true. So, well, kind of as I continue to grow. I wish that I could tell you that those 3 things, that was the attitude that stuck with me as I got older, but it's not. And as I grew, I recognized that I wasn't necessarily like the other girls. I liked to play with the boys at recess. I preferred pants over dresses. And my life was forever changed when my dad came home one day and bought me my first baseball glove. So, unlike the ballet attire that seemed to go over much better, and at some point my mom will watch this, so I do need to tell you that the whole ballet thing, it didn't turn me gay. That was a whole other story, so don't worry about it. It's fine. I can't. So as I got older, I realized that a lot of those things about myself weren't necessarily accepted, right? So society had certain norms, and I didn't necessarily fit into them, and they didn't fit the person that I was becoming. It made me feel self-conscious, and I'm pretty sure I had some major imposter syndrome going on, because I most definitely wasn't a boy and I didn't want to be one, but I didn't necessarily fit in with most of the other girls either. And I'm pretty sure this played a role in my being shy, having a lack of confidence in myself, and a habit of setting poor boundaries just to make other folks happy. Decades later, as I sit here and reflect, I can now laugh about peeing in my leotard. But I'm also proud of that. That and the journey that has brought me here in front of you all today, with enough confidence to tell that story and to also admit that even after all this time, I'm really still not that confident. However, there are many things I've learned along the way, and I really did want to share them here. Never let someone's opinions define you. If someone makes you feel bad for setting a boundary, get rid of them, because they most likely shouldn't be in your life anyway. Wear the clothes that make you feel beautiful, even if you do look like Joan Jett at 11:30 at night at Cedar Crest College. Sit with yourself, listen to yourself, and above all, love yourself often. So there are a lot of themes here. I asked you at the beginning of our time together to look at me and make some judgments. And you took a good look at me, and you probably already read about me before you got here. You might know me, you might have saw my bio in the playbill. And I'm sure you thought you really knew a lot of things about me. And that's okay, because we all do that. And there's no right or wrong answer to this exercise. But what I wanted to do was, I wanted to prove the point that as much as we think we know how someone feels and how someone presents and how someone experienced life, we don't. The human experience is so special, but it's different for all of us. In this life, we spend so much time focused on the past, the future, and the people and the things around us, that we lose who we are and why we are. So if I have to leave you with one thing this evening, it's the request to truly know and love yourself. And for God's sake, don't be afraid to speak your damn truth. Because it's your truth, and no one can take that away from you. So be right here and right now, in the present moment. Be still with yourself. Take a moment to listen to your breath. Make a list about what you love about yourself. Now, this might seem light years away from the little girl in her leotard, but it's really not. That little girl knew who she was, what she liked, and told her mother exactly how she felt. And that, my friends, is the truest, most authentic human experience. Thank you.
Between you and 22, right? We're gonna bring it home. This is the after party after the after party. Right? This is when we really get down and dirty. But anyhow, so I'm gonna say good evening, beloveds, because that's how my grandmother used to welcome people into her sphere. And beloved meant that she was pleased to see you. And if no one said that they were pleased to see you today, tonight, this morning, whatever time it is. I've lost all track of time. I really have. What tomorrow, yesterday, before. If no one said that they were pleased to see you, let me say that I am here to say that I am pleased to see you. And I am here to tell you that at the ripe old age of 60, I stand as a work in progress. And I'm going to hopefully share with you how I'm redefining the word selfish in a positive definition. I'm going to try at least, right? Because selfish and the selfish act is self-care. It is purposeful, it is intentional, and it is the stewardship of me. And so, like anything that we do, I have to formulate that muscle memory, right? If we're ever going to get it right, you got to keep doing it. And I'm formulating that muscle memory because I want to protect my well-being. And that's not an option. And because of that, I have vowed that my peace will not be broken because you are at war with yourself. Because I'm living my life like it's golden. Now let me take you a little bit on my journey. Now this all started with a media post, and it started with an autocorrect, and some of you have already heard me tell this story, but it's okay, I'm gonna tell it again, because most of you haven't heard it. And it started with an autocorrect for the word October, and it changed to the word octopus. Now, I don't know why that word octopus, it hit me to my core. It hit me in my soul. And I replied, I feel strangled and voiceless. And that summed up for me not only that week and its endless Zoom meetings, but it summed up for me many events that made me feel strangled and voiceless. As I grieved with families who wished their loved one was judged by 12 rather than carried by 6. And even when judged by 12, gave lives in an unjust system only to be found the one thing they already were, innocent. With protests against systemic racism and police brutality where Black and brown and Asian bodies are not valued, whether in motion or at rest. And I look at my sweet, smart, funny, loving, exasperating 16-year-old son. And I pray to God that he takes me and I get to see his face, and that my child lives the life that he so richly deserves. Ooh. Changing geopolitics, climate change, gender injustices, and body autonomy hovering around the times where we women were considered chattel property. And we know the structural injustices of women of all nationalities tend to suffer from more poverty, overwork, deprivation, insecurity, whether it be food, financial, unhoused, political marginalization. And let's cap off everything with the blurred lines between work and the personal life with remote working. Hey, Mom, I need milk, as I'm making a salient point in my Zoom meeting, and not to be outdone with my six-toed cat walking behind me. Because she doesn't want to be left out, right? And we're doing all of this, navigating with no GPS and no map. And anybody relate to this? And through it all, we're channeling our foremothers. Remember I told you about my granny? Little woman just like this. I come from a long line of strong women. Actually, no, resilient women. And we handled our business in yoga pants. In short, we rode the whirlwind, but we did not inherit the wind. But that was then. So let me tell you, I needed to be connected. I needed to find a plug. I needed a grounding that helped, I needed to be sort of connected to my true north. And for me, it was and is the sorority of the artichokes, and chokes for short. And I know you're wondering at this ripe old hour why artichokes, so I'm gonna tell you. And an artichoke is a thistle. It's a flowering plant characterized by prickly leaves. You following me? And the outermost layers tend to be the toughest, and the leaves get softer as you get closer until the center, until eventually you reach the heart. These women, primarily women, were my touchstones. And I for them, where we could simply unhook and be. And our communications were simple and clear like the bat signal. Oh, girl, I simply can't with these people. True. How you living? Are you fed? Are you watered? Girl, did you take that medication? You're looking kind of ashy. Come on now. And we would remind our sister friend that she mattered to us. And we knew we had to gather round and surround our friend to remind her, as Mother Maya reminds us, you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. We did what was done for generations before. We did for each other until we could do for ourselves. We spoke each other back. We prayed each other back. We laughed each other back. We stroked our brows and reminded us that we were in our season. And in doing so, reminded ourselves. That's what I was ready, emotionally ready, to receive, to help me rejuvenate, to be reborn, to take a step forward, to find a way out of no way. We were the shelter until one of us, any of us, could lift our face to the sun. And so I started to use the word strong, and I've moved away from that self-characterization of strong. especially as it pertains to Black women and women of color, because we have become sort of a trope equivalent to being the superwoman. And I prefer the word resilient. Now, you're going to tell me it's semantics, and it's too late. I'm not going to quibble. Just go with me for now. I'm going to prefer the word resilient, because resilient means that I am adapting and I am thriving, and I'm thriving well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, and stress. Resiliency defines my outlook and my response. So, women, and I'm going to put we are sometimes misperceived as cold and mean, aggressive. I know I have been characterized as combative simply because I refuse to be disrespected, mistreated, taken for granted, but you know what, that's okay. Because you know what, I like me. Your validation is not necessary. And in fact, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I love me. And while I'm at it, I think we've heard some of it here tonight, most of it through my sister friends back here. Folks will be happy as long as you don't rock the boat. But I'm gonna tell you here tonight, this morning, this evening, wherever we are, we're gonna challenge the status quo. Because if you never ask, the answer will always going to be no. Because as my gran used to tell me, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. It's true. If I don't step forward, I remain in the same position. And when I start standing up, when you start standing up and saying, this is not working for me, somehow I become the problem. Oh, get over yourself. We must find the courage, find the courage to leave the table when respect is no longer being served. So some people are never going to clap for you. I've heard this tonight. They're not going to clap for you. Win anyway. Clap for your own self. Clap. Surround yourself with those allies who will allow you to practice your grace, dignity, and the importance of learning how to cultivate yourself, allowing you to come into your growing season, to act with selfishness. That's the self-care I'm talking about, that allows you to breathe, to exhale, to rest, to grow. We're going to rinse and repeat. Beloveds, we are constantly ripping and running and tearing and hithering and yondering, right? And we don't give ourselves the time to rejuvenate, the time to get our minds and body the permission to rest. But I have said time and time again, rest is a form of prayer and meditation because we are listening to our bodies, we are listening to our minds, we are listening to the Spirit. Remember how Simone and Serena and Naomi were called out of their names because, that's for a different day and a different discussion. Come on now. Is it a different day? That's for the after party. So now I say to myself, out loud to you, what kind of practices or habits am I going to nourish my heart and my soul to strengthen me and my mind people, friends, please use those Sephora points. What you holding on to them for? I know. Come on, raise your hands. You got those Sephora points, don't you? I know, because I do too. And, social media, let me tell you something. Unfriend, unfollow, mute, block, delete. Do you know how much weight I lost and how much peace I gained when I did all of that? Woo, praise him. What is the one thing that you can let go from your life so you can make room for something or someone that matters more? What is that thing that can bring you the peace and the joy that passes all understanding? And by the way, I see a colleague here, so I know she has heard me say this time and time again. You do know that no is a complete sentence. No need to feel obligated to offer up an explanation to justify this response. No, N-O. And no is no in practically every language. So if you are multilingual, woo, you're good. Right? We know that there are people who want to, as my gran used to say, live light and weigh heavy. I tell you, we people from the islands, Trinidad, we good. We are good. That's self-explanatory, living light and weighing heavy. But you can't do for others if you are broken, tired, and exhausted. So I'm learning to reclaim my time. And my time is to sing, dance, do nothing, binge watch, Netflix or prom, doesn't really matter. Do things that align with my soul, my spirit, right? For my purpose and my season. And as Mary J. reminds us, I know you know, sometimes you gotta look in the mirror and say, what? Good morning, gorgeous. Because it is well with my soul. Good night.